Hello, everybody. This is Jason, and this is another version of Off the Cuff. This is going to be another not so off the cuff because I have a lot of this already kind of written out. I'm going to talk about a lot of different things. So, a housekeeping item right off the bat, I'm referring to several different source tracks. In the notes of the video, I will give you links to YouTube videos and the approximate time that the referred to musical part will start at. While I have no plans to monetize my channel, most of these references would be would be like I'm pointing to a lot of tracks that are not my tracks, so therefore I want you to listen to them yourself. I don't want to try to plan while I'm doing it because I don't want YouTube to have kittens because I'm working with copyrighted material. I am going to play samples of some stuff and talk about it in terms of one of my own original songs that I'm actually working on right now. So there will be some examples of one of my tunes, but a lot of this I'm going to leave you a link and tell you the approximate time that you can go to listen to the example of what I'm talking about in like a fixed tune. Alright, so I was listening to a band that I thought might be interesting, and I was kind of doing something else while I was listening to the band, and it wasn't jiving for me. And it sounded okay, the sounds were okay, but what I realized is the song structures that they were using just weren't interesting. Most of the songs that they were doing, they were just kind of doing like developing a sound, just kind of sitting on the sound and not really going anywhere with it. And one thing is I kind of like songs, and I like songs that have different parts and song structure. So I was thinking about this, and I decided that I was going to do a video where I was going to talk about different kinds of parts to songs, and I was going to do some demonstrations or tell you where you can get some demonstrations of the songs. So that's kind of what this video is going to be. So first of all, there are no hard and fast rules for how you construct a song. You can do this however you want. You're going to hear me say a lot of times throughout this that you can do it this way, you can do it this way, you can do it this way. You don't have to have this kind of part. You can have this kind of part. Things like that. So there's no hard and fast rules how to do it. But I'm going to kind of introduce the basic parts, tell you kind of a little bit about what their function is, and kind of help you kind of understand what they are, and then also give you kind of a feel for different things that you can listen to hear examples of these kinds of parts. All right. So first off, I'm going to talk about the introduction or the intro. A lot of songs don't have an intro, or if they do have an intro, it's a really simple intro where maybe they play through like a couple of bars of the the verse part before they start singing. So let's say I was going to do a song like Wild Thing, right? So this might be the introduction. Wild Thing. So I play the two empty parts and then I go into the part. And that's about all the introduction. But sometimes you have specific introduction parts that you have written. Some of them can be pretty long and elaborate. Some of them can be pretty short. Some songs don't have any introduction at all. But for the song that I'm using as an example song, I came up with a little introduction part that goes like this. So here's my little sample introduction part. So that's what I use, and I actually use that at the end of the song as well as an outro. The reason why I do that is I like kind of like bookends or symmetry in a song. So I like it's like you kind of complete the journey. You start at the beginning, you go through everything with the song, and then you kind of end up where you started off again. And I like that kind of symmetry in writing. But you don't need an intro. You don't have to have an intro. You can have really long intros, and then also intros can kind of be determined by like where your song is. Maybe because it's the first song on the album, you might have an extensive intro on the first song of the album because it also serves as the intro for all the songs on the album, something like that. So there's a lot of different things you can do with an intro. The meat and potatoes, though, of most songs are verses and choruses. And usually a song will have one or two verses before the first chorus. The verse is the workhorse of the song, and that's where the bulk of the story or the concept of the song is relayed. The chorus is usually the main hook of the song. If a song is so if there's anything that reflects like the title of the song and the lyrics, it'll usually show up in the chorus. And that's kind of like an example for my song. So my current demo song is called a song called Glacier, and I'm going to play you a verse and a chorus from it. So it starts off like this. If a man's worth is measured by what he leaves behind, what is the legacy of our times? I'd like to think that the work that we put in will have some kind of meaning. Glacier melts in the rising heat. What once stood strong is in a slow retreat. So the glacier part in this case is the chorus, and that's where right now that's the working title of the song. And then the verses is I did two verses before I went into the chorus, which is pretty typical in a lot of songs. But you don't have to do it the way. And a lot of times for me, the chorus is the hardest thing to write because the chorus can almost be like a punchline and a joke, where it can be like the most disappointing part of the whole thing sometimes, because if it just doesn't connect, it just doesn't work right, because there's so much weight that holds on the chorus. The other thing is, with a chorus, you don't necessarily have to have lyrics for a chorus. Sometimes you can just have the chorus be an instrumental part. A good example of this is Black Dog by Led Zeppelin. So if you listen to Led Zeppelin, Black Dog, it starts off with the verse, but then it doesn't really have like a true chorus. What it has is it has a riff that serves in the place of the chorus. You hear that riff come in at about 30 seconds, like and then the chorus would be. So it's, hey mama said the way you move, gonna make you sweat, gonna make you groove. And then it's, But anyway, listen to the song. About 30 seconds into the song, you'll hear the example I'm talking about. So you don't have to have a like actual words for chorus. The other thing is, while usually verses precede choruses, they don't have to precede choruses. You can start off a song on a chorus. A good example of this is a song by Morrissey called "The More You Ignore Me, the Closer I Get." That song actually starts off, "The more you ignore me, the closer I get," and then it goes through and finishes the chorus, and then it starts in on the first verse. So there's no, like I said, and I'm going to say over and over again, there's no like hard and fast rules for how you do this. If you want to kind of get a feel for that, if you get about 40 seconds into that song, you'll hear where it moves away from the opening chorus into the first verse. Another common thing that you'll hear a lot with songs is a lot of people will double up the chorus at the very end of the song to kind of just punch the chorus home right at the very end. R.E.M. does this all the time. A good example of something like this is if you listen to Crush with Eyeliner. You'll hear the double chorus at the very end of the song start about 3:12. And like I said, all of these I'm going to leave a link and I'm going to leave a time for when these start. So when you look at the links in the thing, you'll see the link to the song on YouTube and then the reference time for when you can hear this specific part. All right, another common part of the song, and this goes by a few different names. I usually call it the break part. And a break part is just kind of a moving away from what everything else has been happening in the song. It's kind of a step away from what the song has been doing. It's a break from it. It can also be called a bridge. It can also be called, some people call it a middle eight part. The middle eight is, a lot of people call it a middle eight break. And it's specifically because it's usually in the middle of the song somewhere, and it's usually 8 measures. So that's why a lot of times it gets called the middle eight. But like for my sample song that I'm working on, my little Glacier song, the break part starts off like this. It actually has 2 break parts. It starts off with more of a normal break part, and then it moves into a secondary break part that I kind of use for a solo. So when I get into that part, I'm going like this. It's, and I was a child, watched the sunset in the sea, had no cares about where I was or what I wanted to be, jumping over the waves as the came towards me. Now, if I were to go back into the regular verse, that would be the end of a break part, and that would be more of like a normal kind of break part. But I go into a secondary break part where I'm planning on kind of doing a solo, so I do this little thing right here, and this is kind of an amalgam of a couple of different parts. I probably will split this up into like 2 or 3 guitar parts, but right now it goes something like this. Now, if you notice at the end there, I went back into the intro part, and that's just to set the stage back up to go back into the regular song again. So then from there, I'd go back into the verse and, kind of get back into the song. Since we did a kind of a big breakaway from the song, I'm going to go back into the song, bring it all back into focus, and kind of restart the whole cycle again. That's why I did it that way. So that's kind of how that song works. Like a song that also, when they say like a bridge, like James Brown would say bridge. A good example of hearing James Brown like actually just announce bridge, and then they go into the part and actually switch the song, is Super Bad by James Brown. There'll be a link for that one as well. And that happens about 1:29 into the song. So that's where we get into that. And then finally, we get into what we call an outro. An outro is like an intro, except for you do it at the end of the song. It's usually a little piece of music to kind of finish the song off or kind of take the music down to the point where you are ending the song. Now, like I said, for this particular song, I'm doing the same outro part again, so it's still this. So it's the same as the intro. And like I said, I kind of like the symmetry of doing that. But do you need to have an outro to have an intro to have an outro? No. Do you need to have you don't need one or the other. You can have an outro be long, you can have it be short. I'll give you an example of a song with a really long outro that everybody knows. I'll play a little bit of it just for fun. Da, 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 da. Hey, Jude, 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 da. Da, 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 da. Hey, Jude, 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 Jude. Anyway, that's an example of a song with a really extensive outro where they take that and they use that to drive the song out and kind of almost make it like a chant or like almost like a religious kind of song, where it's just like, everybody's clapping and singing along and all that kind of stuff. So that's an example, like a really extensive outro. There are some songs where they have a little piece of music at the very end that completely moves away from the whole rest of the song, and it almost becomes its own little mini song called the coda. And I did include an example of a coda, which is Pinball Wizard by The Who. I'll have a link for that as well. That starts about 2 minutes and 46 seconds into that, which will be listed once again in the links in the description. So when you get into something like that, that'll let you know kind of like you get into this little part that's totally different than the whole rest of the song that hasn't been in the song at all, and it's almost like its own little mini song at the very end. So I know that for some of you this is going to be a rehash, and I know this is already becoming a long video, which I knew it was going to be when I started working on this. But I still think it's interesting. I still think it's helpful for you to hear how different parts affect the song and how there's a lot of diversity in what you can do for song construction. Now, is every song that just works with one idea and sticks with it a bad song? No. There are plenty of good songs. As a source song of somebody that basically a song that pretty much just stays throughout the whole same chords throughout the whole thing, that ends up being a really cool song. It's The Passenger by Iggy Pop, and I will leave you a link to that one as well. So thank you guys for paying attention to this. Let me know if you're interested in hearing me play all the way through my song Glacier as it's written right now in a video. I'd be glad to do that for you. Glacier still isn't finished. It's a newer song of mine. I'm not even sure if I'm going to stick with Glacier for the chorus because that's still like the thing I still kind of feel is kind of the biggest weakness of that track is that chorus. I would like to do something a little bit better for it, but I just haven't figured out what yet. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a great one. Thanks for watching. Leave any comments of any other example songs that you may have, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.